You can tell me when we're live.
It says YouTube magically.
Oh, wonderful. Well, happy Tuesday, everyone. We're back at Lunch and Learn. I am Simone, and this is Nate. And
Hello.
we talk all things marketing. Today, our topic is telling our stories and unlocking the emotional connection for your brand. And what we want to do is, you know, uh, today you might hear some of our stories. So let's jump right into it. How you doing, Nate?
Good, good,
What are,
thanks.
what are we jumping into today?
Well, we're getting into the wonderful world of stories. I don't know about you, but I love a good story.
Mhm.
I think it's one of the things that unites all of humanity, frankly. I
This
think
is true.
everybody universally loves stories, without exception. So,
This is why soap operas are so popular. Uh,
yeah.
this is why not just soap operas, but also we like drama. We like the comedy. We like to be scared. So this is why we like movies and TV shows and reality shows, all that stuff. We want to get into the stories, the drama, the that emotion, the things that make us feel something. So absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So basically, we're going to talk about the importance of storytelling as a business strategy. Okay, so that's sort of an interesting twist. Um, and the key theme is embodied in, excuse me, this question. What's the one story about your business that customers just can't ignore? And are you telling it effectively? That's the question, right?
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah. So,
Hmm.
first off, like I said, I think without question and without, um, uh, qualification, all humans are interested in stories, and I think that it's part of our DNA to be wired for stories. Do you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't
I
get
think.
enough of our favorite movies.
Oh yeah,
Love
yeah,
the
exactly.
stories.
Just look at Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the speaking of Hollywood, like the whole Marvel franchise is like one of these interesting um, evolutions here in the last, gosh, how many? What's it been? Almost 20 years now. Good
20
grief,
years probably, yeah.
close to it. But it's kind of uh, uh, all of those stories that are being shown finally on the big screen started off as comic book stories and
Right, right.
little
They're
lowly comics, right? Like,
right. They're retelling stories that that have been told for over 100 years now, right? Because did
some of
when did the
them.
comics start? I know like the Superman started in 1930 something, right?
Yeah, it's
And
it's been a long time.
yeah, there's a whole DC universe and the whole Marvel universe, and
Yeah.
and they've been creating new characters over time, and including women characters, including Black characters, and now we've got
Yeah.
Asian characters and Native American characters, and and we want to know all their stories. We always one of the things we always want to know is what's their origin story, right? And so they tend to tell us a lot of those stories, right? We know Superman is like the most powerful superhero. He can
Hmm.
shoot fire out of his eyes and breathe cold breath. But then it's like, well, how did he start? How did he get these powers? How did he become this most powerful superhero? And
Yeah.
what makes him want to go out and save the little old lady crossing the street from the truck that's coming right at her, right?
Yeah.
Um, we want to know all these things. We want to know all about Tony Stark and how he got started and where this genius came from, creating all his mechanical gadgets and
Yeah.
and the suit. How did he come
Yeah.
up with the suit, right? And so, yeah, part of that is we want to know where you started.
Yeah. And according to Google and other sources that I'm familiar with, the oldest story, do you know the oldest story um, that humanity has created? A little bit of trivia for everybody.
Yeah,
That's
no, I don't, unless it's like something from the Bible.
Well, this is actually older than the Bible, believe it or not. It's
Older than the Bible. Okay.
Yeah. Are you familiar with the Epic of Gilgamesh? Have you heard of this? Yeah.
No, never have.
The Epic of Gilgamesh, I learned about this when I was in college, actually, in university. And I was taking a course called The History of, what was it? The History of the Bible, which was interesting. And surprisingly, it was studying the Bible as sort of like a historical text rather than, religious, fact. So it's kind of an interesting take on it. But it was talked about, the origin itself of the stories within the Bible, which some attribute to the stories that are found in the Epic of Gilgamesh. So the Epic of Gilgamesh follows King Gilgamesh, who, and by the way, all of this is coming from Iraq, the country of Iraq, the ancient Sumerian
Mm-hmm.
civilization. So that
Mm-hmm.
was like 2700 BC. So long, long, long time ago. But believe the reason that we have this is because it was written down on clay tablets. So we actually have recordings of this. But anyway, so there's a whole story in there about an epic flood, which mirrors very closely the flood story in the Bible and all that. So they're thinking that a lot of what is in the Bible actually came from that. So anyway, it's interesting. Check it out. I highly recommend it.
Okay,
But
interesting.
yeah, totally. But
Uh-huh.
2700 BC. That's a very, very, very long time ago. And I'm sure that we were telling stories before then. We just didn't write them down, right? So,
Right,
um,
right. Yeah, there's a tradition in many African tribes where forgetting what they call it. Um, but it's about passing down stories to from generation to generation just audibly, and each generation is responsible for passing the stories down to the next generation, and it's all gather the children, it's story time.
yeah,
um not necessarily writing them down, but telling it to them and having story time in auditory way.
yep, yep.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So it's fascinating. That I love that kind of stuff. Anyway,
Mhm.
I was an English major, so I'm totally into stories. But
Mhm.
so all right,
We'll talk about why we like stories so much.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
is it, I think, well, one of the reasons is because it brings out emotion in us. It helps us to feel different things. It sometimes we get enamored with our favorite characters in the story because those characters are like us, and then we see those characters, maybe we see them overcome some obstacle, and and it shows us, oh, we can overcome it too. Stories make us laugh, they make us cry, they make us angry at times, um, depending on the trajectory of the story. It really brings out in us those feelings, and as it's some stories are teaching us, um, They may be cautionary tales. Some stories are teaching us morals, and some stories are, just kind of teaching us our history, right? Um, so it's really emotional. That emotions in that storytelling is really, really it really connects us. It connects us to the characters in the story. Sometimes it connects us to each other and connects us to humanity as a whole.
Absolutely. Um, if you're from, I don't know if you're familiar with author named T.S. Eliot. He
Hmm.
wrote a very famous poem called "The Wasteland," among others, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock. But
Hmm.
he's one of my heroes, literary heroes. But he had this concept of what he called the objective correlative. And this is a concept where it's a literary device where an object is introduced into a story. And as the story goes along, that object is enhanced and imbued with more emotion as it goes along. So, for example, at the beginning of the story, you might encounter a vase, right? And then as the story goes along, you learn about the death of somebody and you find out that that is actually an urn, for example, like, like just that's kind of an extreme example, but, um, like, oh, okay, I completely view that differently. And every time
Yeah.
that object appears then in the story, it's imbued with that weight, right? It's kind of an
Wow.
interesting concept. But, so yeah, the totally like emotion is like a extremely powerful tool, and
Hmm.
people have used this, right, for marketing purposes, right? Because
Absolutely.
we know that this works. And I guess, do we have like examples of brands that are, successful at this? One that kind of pops out to my mind is the Nike swoosh, you know,
Mm.
and obviously the emotions that we're talking about there are related to, triumph, winning, speed, energy. It's
Yeah.
a lot of the storytelling that are involved in the ad campaigns that they do show people, really out there striving hard, working hard, sweating, and then at the end you see inevitably the Nike swoosh just do it, right?
Yeah.
And so it's filled with all of that, right? It's it's kind of magic in a way that it's able to do this, but can you think of any others?
I remember this commercial from years ago, and I don't know if they still use it or use that same concept. But there was this commercial years ago that McDonald's had on television, right? Um, and it was kind of talking about people who work at McDonald's, the people you see at the counter and the people in the back who are flipping the burgers and making the fries and everything. um, and they talked about, this is the McDonald's crew, and they're here to serve up lunch and dinner and whatever, and all of that. Um, and it's really interesting because they're all young people. They're all mostly teenagers and in their 20s, is what they showed. And they talked about them being this great McDonald's crew, and then they showed these tiny little kids just running up to the counter to get their Happy Meals and whatever. And then the picture stopped and it said future McDonald's crew. And I thought, wow, how cool is that? Um, because in a lot of our in what we don't see McDonald's as most of us don't see, working in the McDonald's restaurant as a long-term career. It's not necessarily. It talked about the crew as, this one is going to college and she's getting this degree, and that one is, starting his business doing blah blah blah, and he's working in McDonald's part-time, that kind of thing. So they're transitioning. McDonald's, they're working in the restaurant um, is a stop for them on their it's part of their journey. But And then here come these little kids who McDonald's will be part of their journey as they're growing up and moving on to their next step in life. And I thought, how cool is that? I thought
Yeah.
that was a great way to tell that story.
Uh-huh. I like it. I like it. So
Oh,
now that we understand the emotional weight of storytelling, how do we use that to craft stories that actually resonate? Um, so we'll go into our second part here. Um, the key points here are authenticity. So why your brand story has to be genuine and align with your missions and values. Um, so it needs to be authentic, it needs to be relatable, and it needs to, have it convey your vision for your company, right? Those are the three key ingredients, I think. So,
absolutely.
speaking of authenticity, what are we talking about there? Like, that's kind of like a buzzword lately, isn't it? Seems to hear that
Yeah, it
everywhere.
is a buzzword, but I think it's also an important word, right? We don't want to because the opposite is what is being inauthentic. We don't want to be inauthentic and try to tell somebody else's story as our own, or craft our own story in such a way that it makes us look 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 a certain way that isn't true, right? So being authentic is showing up, being genuine, and being our true self, being aligned with what our mission and what our purpose really is. So, like for me, in uh, there are certain words that I don't use when I am marketing my programs, because I feel like it would be inauthentic if I have not achieved a certain level. I am not I don't want to share in my story that I have done that, or can help you do it. And who knows, maybe my program can help you do that, but I'm not going to say it until it actually does. Right. So, um, so yeah, being authentic is truly it's a buzzword, but it's an important word, I believe. I feel like it's a buzzword because it catches on and it reaches people. I have
Yeah.
a I've worked with this, I consider myself a fairly strong Christian. And I want to show up in the world, as somebody with integrity, somebody who has, as a follower of Christ, who is not out here, uh, who wants to do good in the world, basically, and not allow, and not show up like, uh, in a negative way, is what I should say. Okay, so I'm working with someone who is, first of all, I don't cuss, at least, you know, I might in my head, but I generally don't cuss where like other people can hear it, right? Um, because I find that it's negative talk, and it's not necessary. Um, but I'm working with somebody who cusses like a drunken sailor.
Okay.
Not in their presentations, but when they're relaxed and they're speaking to somebody, just and so my mother was asking me, um does this person do that in their presentations and that kind of thing? And I said, no, no, they don't. But and I have thought about it, like, should I say something? But then I thought, no, because they are who they are, and they are being authentic, right, to who they are. All I can do is live by example, but not try to change that person, because that change in them has to come from the inside, not from me preaching at them. Say, well, you shouldn't be cussing because cussing is bad and it's vulgar and blah blah.
Yeah.
That's not going to help them. It's going to make them want to just shoot a string of F words, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh,
So yeah, for them it's
yeah.
authentic, for me not so much.
I've many stories about that actually. I don't know. We'd be here all day. Um, I was not, it was not definitely not encouraged at home. I'll just say that much, when I was growing up. Uh, but, okay. So, all right. Yeah, I agree. Some people talk about also authenticity, authenticity is about, how you show up. Um, so let's say if you are the button-down type that likes to wear ties, for example, then your persona that you project, on LinkedIn, let's say, or wherever, should be that person, right? Conversely, if you are not that person, then why is that part of your LinkedIn profile, right?
Right. Very interesting.
Why are you wearing a tie in your LinkedIn profile if you like to wear hoodies? So, so people are going to be shocked when they get onto a phone call with you or a video call and it's like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, or gal.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah,
Um, it it kind of goes to how we talk about branding. Um, One of the things that I used to talk to my musician clients about is that your branding isn't just your logo; it's your message, it's your story, it's how you show up. If
yeah,
you're on stage and you're a hip hop artist, well, then, a hoodie and jeans just might be the perfect uniform for you.
yeah,
But if you're if you're more of a jazz or soul artist, then wearing like natural colored, like more flowing clothing might be perfect, might be the perfect thing, because it's not just your tone and how you sing and that kind of thing, but it's also how you show up, the instruments you use. I remember once I was at a party with some friends, and we're looking at the stage, and one band left and another band was setting up, and so we were looking at the instruments that they were setting up, and we're trying to guess, well, what type of band is coming up, is playing.
yeah,
We can tell by the instruments that they're using, right? And
yeah.
so, my friend was saying, oh, I think it's going to be an R&B band. And I
Uh-huh.
said, that little thing right there is not a keyboard. No R&B band is going to show up with a little rinky-dink keyboard that looks like this, right? That
Yeah.
no self-respecting band would do that. I feel like it's probably going to be a rock band.
Mm,
Um, because I'm seeing more guitars, more
yeah,
drums, not the keyboards, right? And turns out I was right. It was a rock band.
yeah, yeah. I mean, stylists, image stylists, that is an actual career people can get to for, bands or whoever, right? Like the
Yes.
image that you're projecting out there, PR and all that, right? Can't a rock band can't be seen, cuddling with kittens, like it's just
Right.
that doesn't
Exactly.
work.
It just kind of ruins the whole it ruins the whole image.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it doesn't portray the impression that you want people to have.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, I remember once at a showcase, this lady came to she was walking up to the front to sing. And based on how she looked and how she was dressed and her age, um, I was expecting her to sing a certain way. I was expecting her to sing like an old gospel artist, like, you know, I can't even call a name right now, but from like the 70s, the 60s, that's what I'm expecting to hear. But when she opened her mouth and started singing, she sounded more like a Jill Scott or more, so much more modern, more neo
Hmm.
soul. And I'm just like, okay,
Interesting.
now I'm really confused.
You, you were
So like
expecting Nina Simone and got something completely different.
completely different. Uh, yeah. So yeah, she needed an image consultant, a stylist to style
Mhm.
her in the style that worked more for the music that she
Mhm.
was that she was singing, which I
Yeah.
thought was very interesting.
Huh.
So,
It could be
so
jarring,
yeah,
I guess, in that case, right?
yes, it was very jarring. It was very
Takes you out of
jarring.
the suspension of disbelief.
Right. Right. So I think when we're talking about that authenticity, we want to be authentic, not just like you said, if you're more the hoodie and jeans type,
Yeah.
then showing up in a tie
Yeah.
and and a tie and the whole suited out
Hmm.
doesn't look authentic. The whole package doesn't go together.
Yeah.
It doesn't work together, you
And
know?
I think going along with that then is, relatability.
Mhm.
You're showing that you have gone through the same struggles or that you truly understand the struggles that your customers are experiencing, and that makes you more relatable. I went to a an entrepreneur's meet and greet last Wednesday, which I thought was really interesting because part of that is they have 3 to 4 entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs that stand up and give their story, like their origin story, basically how they got to where they are. And it was fascinating to hear um, a common theme amongst all of them. It was the difficulties and the struggles that it took to get where they are now, regardless of the relative level of success. You know, everybody experiences those struggles. And I might add that one of the common struggles was marketing in particular, but the first person who spoke was actually a marketing major at college, and they uh, experienced several setbacks and hurdles on their route to becoming a business owner. They with some investment help, from various people, were able to purchase a pizza, um, I don't know, restaurant, and so that's their venture into entrepreneurship. He said that he had gone through several different jobs prior to that. So one was working in a furniture store where he learned a lot about presentation and like front of house, situating things and making them look appealing just by their physical location and all that, right? Um, and so he was able to use those skills to, you know, help with the front of house of his restaurant, the presentation of like the buffet and, the
Mhm.
arrangement of everything and creating that milieu, if you will, that inviting atmosphere, and setting the scene there with that. And so I just thought it was interesting. And another guy said, he had lots of personal struggles, not the least of which was the final year of his high school experience was he spent at least 2 months squatting in a abandoned house, because both of his parents had either run away or passed away, and he had no recourse, apparently. I don't know the details about how the living situation failed him. I can't remember what he said about that, but the local community found out about this, and some local landscaping uh, company owners took him in, taught him landscaping,
Mm.
and now he has started his own landscaping business. Needless to say, fast forward, short story, but it's kind of interesting. And now he can, obviously identify with lots of different folks, right? He can bring many different people into his circle by talking about his experiences then, right? Um,
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's one of the most important things about telling your story is that your prospects and your clients can relate to your struggles and where you've come from, and you can show them that you are a regular person and you have not always been um, this super successful entrepreneur, and um, and that they can overcome what you've overcome, and that you've been where they are, and because you've overcome it, you can help them overcome it. Whether you're a business coach or even a landscaper or
yeah.
whatever it is, helping that relatability is crucial.
Yeah, one of my early personal story here, one of my early careers or jobs, I should say, was was working for a therapeutic wilderness program in North Carolina. So I lived there for 3.5 years. I was a teacher counselor. We were trained in therapeutic crisis intervention, and the students, or the campers, if you will, that we had were disadvantaged youth in that area, from Eastern North Carolina area. And so that was an extremely difficult situation to be in, to say the least. But it was really rewarding, I felt. And to this day, I still have a soft spot in my heart for people who are helping um, that population, right? And disadvantaged youth. And so one of my clients actually, they're not disadvantaged youth necessarily, but their like mission is to help like the youth in the Atlanta area with teaching them life skills and helping bring them up into leadership positions, introducing them to leaders in the community, and kind of give them that exposure. And I love that. So
Mhm.
um, call me a sucker, I guess, for that kind of thing. But that's I need to probably incorporate that kind of thing into my brand story, I think. But you know, I'm still working on it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it takes practice. Right before I joined in with you today, I was uh, I was sitting in on a challenge that a friend of mine is doing, and she was telling her story, and it was just very compelling, and it really drew me in. And she got to one point in her story, like the low point in her story, the I've had it moment, and the tone of her voice went down like this,
Mm,
and it sounded like she was about to cry.
mm,
Right then and there, when she really drew you in, like, and just, it's like, picture it, I'm here, and just came to, and I'm at this point where they let me go, and I had to walk back and in front of all these people, just in the most public way, and I was just like, wow. Oh, crushing, and it was just, so yeah, being able to tell your story in a way that draws people in and brings out emotion, and helps them to relate to you. You're putting them in the story with you, right? You're pulling them in. You're painting the picture, and they can see it. They're there, right? They've been in these places before. Um, where you
And
can
it can
share
open
with
new
them, like,
doors. You know,
yeah,
you can join groups where you can talk about those experiences and kind of bring people into your brand story just by virtue of the fact that you all have a similar situation. You know,
yeah,
completely disparate backgrounds. You know, nobody's necessarily talking about business, you know, but all of a sudden you have a captive audience, and you can tell. And you know, hey,
yeah,
by the way, if you want to learn more, like, you
yeah,
know,
and that help,
um,
yeah, and that's a good way to help craft your story too, I think.
mhm,
You know, if
yeah,
you're telling it over and over to different people.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
think using that story then to talk about your mission and the impact that you want to have
Hmm.
is part of that vision piece, right? So being authentic, being relatable, and having a vision parts
Hmm.
that's what helps to build your story.
Yeah.
Um, all right. I think, you know, practically speaking, making sure that you are conveying that story consistently everywhere, you know, on all of the different channels. So your website, social media ads, or excuse me, social media ads, etc., is important. I'm working with a client right now, and we are kind of redefining that story, you know, as part of his positioning and his messaging, right? And prior to um, you know, working with him, one of the key components that you saw going to his website was click here to get a 5% discount. That was pretty much the central message of the website. Like, uh, what is that? Um, and so now we're getting into actually building a story up around it, you know, and you know, it turns out that he learned a lot by example from his uncle or his grandpa, excuse me, about you know being you know trustworthy and authentic, and you know shaking a person's hand, looking him in the eye, and really meaning what you say, and doing what
Hmm.
you say, right? And so that's where he got the name for his business, which is Handshakers Construction. And that whole story component was completely missing. You know, like
Wow.
no idea. It's
Oh
not
yeah.
immediately clear what in the world a handshaker is, right? And so
Hmm.
so bringing that into the website and you know pushing that through the social media and et cetera, that's what we're focusing on doing now, and like going back through the branding and all that. So,
Very good.
um, yeah. And so part of that obviously is, you know, being visual, having a narrative built around it, a literal story, you know. Um, okay.
Yeah, and this the story tells the why. That's kind
Yeah.
of where that vision comes in. Like, your story tells where you've been
Yeah.
and why you're doing what you're doing now. Um,
Yeah.
that makes that makes your brand that much more compelling.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Um, so the key message here, a brand story only becomes real when people can see its impact. But that is where customer stories come in. So now, we're going to talk about validating your business through customer stories. Um, Customer success stories, in particular, these are pretty powerful ways to demonstrate your business impact. Just was it last week? I finally made um, the bold decision to do a case study for the customer I just was talking about, the SEO work that we've done for him, and put that on the website finally. My thing there was like, how am I going to do this case study? How should I make this look? And I actually just did it as a blog post, and then linked it later in the navigating to say, hey, here's a case study, check this out, which ends up working out pretty well. But in that case study, I've built a narrative around it. You know, came to me, had this problem, was not generating any kind of leads, and um, and now all of a sudden, because of the work that we've done, there's uh, proof, case in point, of what the impact that we've had. And the title I gave it was From Crickets to Clicks. Construction company boosts revenue with GHD Unlimited with the company. So
Oh, nice.
um, built an entire story around it, you know, and
Yeah.
that worked really well, I thought.
Yeah. I think case studies are very powerful because they really show the transition from where a client came from and their frustrations and their fears
Yeah.
and their wants to working with you to having the success that they really wanted.
And
It's
anybody
pretty
that
awesome.
reads that is going to say is going to be able to identify themselves, you know,
Yeah.
with that story potentially, because hey, you know, that's me. I have that problem, and you
Mhm.
know, obviously, this story is telling me that this company can help me. So wow, I'm going to talk to them, you know. So that's the
Absolutely.
idea.
Absolutely.
Um, so question here, are you integrating storytelling into your marketing regularly? About what about you, Simone? Are you?
Um, I am to a certain point. I'm better at writing it down. I've been very good at writing it down. You know, when there are calls for talks and guests on podcasts and stuff, I'll say, you know, um, I'm available for a podcast episode. This is my story, and just kind of give them a little snippet to draw them in and let them know that yeah, I'm the perfect person to have as a guest, right? Um, I have it as a on the about page of my website, right? This is how I can help you, but then and this is where I came from. Doing it in presentations, on the other hand, I have to get better. I have to get better at. So so
Off
actually
the cuff in presentations, is that what you mean? Or
no planned presentations
oh,
actually.
okay. Okay.
Yeah. I think if I do an off the cuff presentation, I can't remember. Like, well, I tell like some of my story here. It depends on the topic and what comes up. Then I'm able to tell a story. But yeah, when I do plan presentations, I always have to remember, oh, put this in the agenda. Otherwise, I will gloss right over it because I'm so used to just jumping right in and just sharing what I need to share, like, teaching.
Hmm,
I teach. So
yeah,
I'm so used to teaching. So, and I forget that my story is important and they need to know who it is that they're spending time with. And does this person actually, uh, where does this person come from? And can they actually help me based on, what they've learned,
yeah,
where they've come from? Are they
yeah,
similar to me? Right? People want to know that. Like, am I in the presence of someone who can actually understand me
yeah.
and understand where I've been or where I am
And
now?
like being able to pull those stories out, you know, about times when you were able to help a customer specifically. I mean, you don't have to, you know, mention them by name or anything like that, but
Mhm.
it allows you to kind of frame and provide a little context around and give an example in act of seeing what you do in action, right? It's one thing to say, well, hey, I do marketing strategy. People are like two 4 letter words as far as you know, like, you know, people hear that and it's
Mm,
like, what does that even mean? But you know, if I tell them story about how I've been able to help somebody in a concrete way, then all of a sudden, oh yeah, okay, people can see themselves in the story and identify
yeah,
with it, and that allows them. It separates. It's also very key for for sales in general, right? Because
Yeah.
it creates some distance and separation between you and the listener. And you
Hmm.
can use these to kind of like I was watching a video with Alex Hormozy the other day, and he was talking about using straw man examples.
Hmm.
So one of the examples that he gave is, if you are a sort of a younger person talking to an older person and you want to sell them something, a lot of times the older person is going to look down on you and think, well, this person doesn't know what they're talking about because they have no experience, right? So in that case, then you set up a straw man where you say, I was just talking to somebody about this earlier today, and this is what we talked about, or can I share with you the kind of the solution that we came up with? In that case, it's not you're not trying to coach them or teach them,
Hmm.
and they're not looking at you as some, know nothing, whippersnapper, right?
Right. Right.
um, you're able to kind of relate an actual story that you had, whether it's actually real or not, you know, by the way. Um,
And go back to authenticity.
well, I mean,
But I get what he's trying to
yeah,
say, right?
yeah,
It's like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah. So say the younger person may come up with maybe it's an analogy or something that the older person can relate to.
yeah.
Or
Oh, the old,
or I was talking to this person who was just about your age,
right,
and we were working on we had this problem and I helped them to work through it, and
yeah.
they got a great result or whatever,
Well, and it
and a
also
good
allows you to be
understanding.
It also allows you to be brutally honest, because
Yeah.
because you're talking about somebody else. You're not talking about this person
Yeah.
that's listening, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true too.
Anyway,
That's true.
um, so all right, where are we at? Oh, I lost my point. I lost my train of thought here. Um, where lost everything now.
Well, when it comes
Okay.
to
Oh, there we go. The
one
other
thing
the
I
other
did want to
question.
mention is that when it comes to bringing in customer stories and like customer success stories,
Yeah,
one of the
yeah,
things that's really powerful about customer success stories, especially case studies, when you have a longer story, um, then a prospect may look at that case study and say, oh, that person is just like me, and you help them to overcome that problem and they see success. Well, then that means you can help me too. And
yeah,
it brings in that human connection, and you're letting that prospect see that you're a perfect fit for them, which I
yeah.
think is cool.
Exactly,
Which
exactly.
is cool.
Um, so that leads me to the next question. Are you showcasing those customer success stories on
Mm,
the different platforms that you have? Just like I said, writing a customer success or a case study as a blog post, sharing that, repurposing it. But then also, I make sure to have testimonials on my website in several different places.
yeah, that's
Um,
one thing that I need to do. Um, I just relaunched my website, and having this conversation has reminded me, like, there are some customer success stories that I need to post.
yeah, yeah.
Let the world see,
I
like,
have some more
it's
I
good.
need to get up there. So that's
Hmm.
it's like one of those never-ending things, right? But hey, it's all worth it.
I always say a website
Um,
is never done.
yeah, exactly. Um, so I guess the part of the strategy here is to make sure that you're collecting those testimonials and success stories so that you can actually show the results and, be more convincing, I guess, when people actually come to your website to show
Yeah,
them, hey, this is what I really can do, right?
yeah. Because a lot
Um,
of times, your prospects won't believe you unless they hear from somebody who was like them.
yep,
Um,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
that social proof is
Hmm.
is golden.
And I think here, if you are going to put case studies, I mentioned the straw man thing earlier. If you're going to use case studies and testimonials, they better be real. Just throwing that out
Yes,
there.
yeah, right. And there are there are some FCC rules around it specifically,
Is that right?
especially if you're, say you're in advertising or promotions or marketing, and you've helped
Like you
you've
should
helped
know
the
better,
client
right?
get to six figures.
Yeah.
You actually have to be able to show documentation.
Ah, gotcha.
Otherwise, FCC will come after you.
Gotcha. Yeah. Um, okay, so let's wrap up with a few key takeaways here if we can.
Okay.
Um, Basically, emotional storytelling is the key here, and that helps to build trust and loyalty. Um, if you want to be compelling with your story, then it needs to be authentic, relatable, and have vision. And finally, your customer success stories show how your business makes a difference. All right.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
Um, that's all we have for today. But we want to remind you to like, share, subscribe, and click the like button or click the notification so you don't miss any of our any of our new videos. And develop your own brand story. Comment in the comments, like, what is your story? Give us a snippet of your story,
Yeah.
and
And
how
by
did you get to where you are?
And by the way, we're going to include downloadable documents that are going to allow you to help start to build your story. So it's a storytelling framework that
Mhm.
you can use, and it kind of walks you through. It's a short guide, kind of walks you through building that story. And hopefully, we'd love for you to share those stories once they're completed. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, in written form and in your presentations.
Yeah.
Absolutely, share your stories.
And of course, if you
Um,
need help building those, by all means, get in touch. So,
Absolutely, we'd love to help you. All right, so that is all for today. We will see you next time. Happy